Mm, mm, mm. What? Oh, this is a jam. Shut up, Teddy Pup. What's going on, guys? I'm gonna roll through some games here and show you how absolutely I am at chess, and then we probably play some NCAA 14. Got True Seminole in here. I'm ready for the season too, for sure. Let's play a little Queen's Gambit. He doesn't accept. What a jerk. That's fine. You can double my pawns on the C file. I'm all right with it. You think I got in this life yesterday? True Seminole, what do you think about College Game Day? I mean, I guess it's week 0, so there's not another game they could realistically do it at. But game 1, Florida State, Georgia Tech, College Game Day. Should be exciting. I have ideas. I feel like here. I feel like that's a mistake. Why don't I just take? I feel like that's right. Yeah. Am I an idiot here? I don't see the problem. I probably am. I mean, with this bishop's killer. What does he do about that? Sack the rook? Maybe here? I feel like we just go here. I mean, he can keep doing that. I mean, eventually, like, this is coming, right? Yeah, I'm the dummy here. I'm the dummy here. Let's look into the chat. Even though I'm playing blitz chess, I only have 5 minutes. White Snake, that's right. Tech Baseball going to win the ACC championship. Calling it now. Well, that's the only way we're going to keep playing. What is this? Checkers? No, this is chess. Oh, I just blundered. What an idiot. What an idiot. I'm down on time, so I can't just flag. Tech's gonna make it to the tournament no matter what, just won't host a regional. Okay, well, I just heard everyone's like wanting to fire Danny Hall. I don't think we can win this, but anyway. We gotta just keep gobbling pawns and hope something can happen. Oh, this is mate. Yeah, that's mate. And that's how you get your ass kicked at chess. We'll play one more game and play some NCAA 14. What games do you have on PS5? What games don't I have on PS5? Like I have Elden Ring. I have a bunch of games twice. I have Forbidden West on PS5, Elden Ring. Honestly, don't play PS5 that much now that I have a new computer. Now, how do we play... How do we play this? And then he'll go here, and then I go here. Is that what you're supposed to do? Oh, I just blundering pieces. Well, that pawn you can't. You run into trouble trying to defend that pawn. I think we have to go here. And then he'll go here, and then we go here. And then here maybe, and then here. I don't know. What do you guys think? Doesn't that just lose you a pawn? What an idiot. Now he's got problems. I think we can just ignore this. I think we can just ignore this. Okay. I guess he'll ignore the threat. Can you say fort? Do we have a better move though than take rook on A1? Nah, we better just play it safe. This is probably coming. I think we play here. That's what we do. Keep the pressure on. You don't take? Huh. All right. So we got here, here. Oh, that's what we do. This, well, that doesn't come with check. Never mind. I'm a dummy. Oh, but he still can't take because the knight's pinned to the queen. Never mind. Now we're just losing. This is to be expected. This is actually to be expected. And my knight's hung in the corner here. We got to get him out. Yeah. So he's attacking me twice, and I have 2 defenders. I don't know. Let's do this. What about this? No, never mind. Never mind. This rook hasn't moved yet, though. Where's it go? This is kind of annoying. Fort. President Biden's in the chat. Holy crap. Now, okay. Now what do we do? I think my queen goes here. Oh, well now I undefended this piece. Now I'm down the exchange there. And there's not a threat of back rank mate, plus he's defending it. Did he just blunder his queen? Resignation should be the next move. Really? Okay. And we'll pick up the knight. Let's just double the rooks here. I guess he has here. We come here. He has to get. That's the only move, right? Only move.
Okay, now, Steven, blow out the candles.
And that's how you do it. All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the show. We're having fun today. Let's go through the chat here. True Seminole says, ready for the season. Me too, man. Me too. Oh my God. I'm dropping things everywhere. Rambling on says, what's up? Nico says, hell yeah, White Snake. Yeah, we got a little White Snake in tonight. Tech Baseball going to win the ACC championship. Calling it now. I hope so. August 24th, baby. Going to be some surprise people. Here's the thing with August 24th. Is that Florida State, Georgia Tech game, right? Florida State is in a predicament because not only do they have to beat Georgia Tech with everything that's going on, they have to handle Georgia Tech, or they have something to prove. So if they beat Georgia Tech by 3, from public perception standpoint, that's a loss. They need to beat Tech by 14 or more points, a minimum of 2 scores. True Seminole says, I like it a lot. Who do you think is going to be in the ACC championship game this year? Let's think about this. A lot of people are talking about Miami. Obviously, people are talking about Florida State. They won it last year. Clemson's always going to be in the conversation when you're talking about ACC championship. But this is the thing, Clemson is definitely on the decline. Clemson is definitely on the decline. They definitely, like, them not taking a single player out of the portal is not good. Dabo has not reached the heights of college football in the portal era. And it's the first time I've heard Josh Pate be somewhat critical of a coach on his show. I don't watch Josh Pate a ton, but he's going to have to show he can win without taking a kid out of the portal. And what this means that he's doing in reality is he is turning his roster over top down. So we've heard Brent Key talk about turning your roster over from the bottom down, or bottom up, meaning let's say your worst 10 players on your roster, making them better, right? Dabo's doing the opposite. He's losing the best or some of the best players in the top 20% of his roster to the portal, and then giving a walk-on a scholarship. So now his team's just objectively worse. Now, I'm kind of rooting for Dabo. Dabo does a lot of silly things. Dabo says a lot of silly things. But I think there's a lot of silly things going on in college football. I would like to see a coach not engage in the portal and be successful, right? I just don't think it's possible. I mean, it's just I made this joke on Pigskin Pete's show, like, hard mode in NCAA 25 will be dynasty mode with Clemson, and you're not allowed to take anyone out of the portal. Like, it's just a clear self-imposed disadvantage that isn't warranted. I don't really understand it. And look, respect to Dabo, like, he's going to stand on his principle. But here's the thing. They'll turn on Dabo. Like, if he keeps losing 4 games a year, it gets worse, or he's not able to improve. Eventually, people will forget about the 2 national titles he won. That's just the reality of college football. So who do I think will be? That's a good question. Can Miami get it together? I just don't think so. Let me look at Miami's schedule. I'm going to have to look at some of these teams' schedules. Miami 2024 football schedule. Let's look at it. They open up with Florida. Now, that's a team they should beat, right? But it is a rivalry game, and it is in Gainesville. So you can't just assume they're going to win that game. But for our purposes, that's a game they should win. Florida A&M, they should win that game. Ball State, that's a team Georgia likes to schedule non-con. South Florida, Virginia Tech, and Cal. So in their first 6 games, there's not a game they won't be favored in, and most of them by double digits. Most of them by 10 points or more. So they should be 6-0 coming into their first bye week. Then they got they got a little bit tougher out at Louisville, and then they get Florida State at home. 2 games they could lose. Once we get to this portion of the season, you can't really speak of to who will be favored. If they played today, those would be pick-em games, and Florida State, they would be underdogs in. Like, Louisville probably be a 1-point line. Florida State would probably be favored by 3.5, maybe more. So you got to assume they'll lose one of those. They should beat Duke. They should beat Georgia Tech, even though they didn't last year. They did win the last time they were in Atlanta. And look, I don't 100% know what to expect from Georgia Tech this year. It really all hinges on what happens with Georgia Tech's defense. They've got some players, like getting Romello Height is huge. But until I see the substantial, you know, increase in play defensively, like I'm just going to kind of hold my breath. Miami is more talented than Georgia Tech. I can tell you that. However, we say it every time we talk about Miami, talent isn't the issue for them. Then they got Wake and Syracuse. Syracuse is a team that probably has the biggest question mark for me in the ACC going into this season. They've got a new coach. They murdered it in the transfer portal. I don't know where they got money to get these players in or what they're telling players to get into them, but for a first-year coach at Syracuse, the dude has done absolutely everything that he can do to get them in the best position to win up to this point. This schedule stacks up to where they should be able to make a run for the ACC title, but just like, you know, Georgia Tech's defense is going to have to prove that they can win, Miami's going to have to prove that they can win an ACC title or make it. They've only made it once, right? They're going to have to prove that to me. I don't think Miami makes it in the ACC title game. Virginia Tech's a sneaky team this year. They're much improved. I believe their recruiting is elevated and they did a pretty good job in the portal. You're saying they'll lose to South Florida? South Florida's just not a good team, though, are they? I mean, they gave Alabama a run for their money last year, didn't they? That's before Alabama figured out who their quarterback is. Do they have NC State? They don't. NC State's another team. Like what Georgia was to the SEC before Kirby got there, NC State has kind of been that in the ACC, where they just never have been able to take that step to get beyond 8 or 9 wins. Can they do it this year? I don't know. I don't know a lot about NC State. In fact, I don't even see – does anyone see NC State fans online? I need to have my little college huddle emblem on my show now. I'll reach out and see if I can talk to an NC State fan in that podcast group. I just don't see NC State fans. Hardly ever. Florida went 5-7 and no bowl. Is Georgia Tech like the only team in the ACC that has a tough schedule? Who else do I think could compete? Louisville, I think, takes a step back this year. Louisville, I think, lost a lot. And they got like a running back in. What was the running back's name they got in? Similar situation with Tech with like Ayo Fossey and was it Jackson Barton or Jack Barton? He was there for like a month. Didn't tell anyone at Louisville, he's a running back, that he was thinking about leaving the minute he got there, and he's out. Louisville loses Jack Plummer, right? Did they lose anything else off offense? I just think Louisville takes a step back. And then with Florida State lost a lot, right? Now they killed it in the portal. They're recruiting. They've been recruiting in the top 10. This is a pivotal year for Florida State. Florida State now, and I guess the not post Bobby Bowden, but post Jameis Winston, they've got to show they can put 2 dominant seasons together, especially with everything that's going on with conference realignment. I'm not saying they can't. In fact, let's look at Florida State's schedule. Obviously open up with Georgia Tech. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Georgia Tech fan. If you're a Florida State fan, you better not overlook Georgia Tech to open up the season. I'm not saying Georgia Tech is a great team. They're improved. They've stopped the bleeding. They're in a rebuild. I think Brent Key is doing all the right things. I think this year Georgia Tech is a team that if you're a really good team with a lot of expectations like Florida State, you don't want to play. Because Georgia Tech has nothing to lose going into this game in Ireland. First of all, it's in Ireland, so there's some weirdness with playing in Europe. Now, I've given my opinion on I hate playing in Europe. I mean, I hate Europe in general, just the whole continent. So there's some weirdness with that. Georgia Tech has nothing to lose. If Florida State beats Georgia Tech by 30 points, everyone's going to say, well, that's what should have happened. Who cares? But if you struggle with Georgia Tech, now all the eyes are on Florida State. All the eyes are going to be on Florida State anyways because of what's going on. There's going to be a lot of people rooting against Florida State. So this is a big game for Florida State. Don't let Tech, sneak up on you. And this won't come as any surprise. Like, I haven't done a season preview or prediction, but I'm going to predict Florida State to win that game. Boston College gave you everything you wanted last year. Then we heard about, I guess your whole team had the flu. Who knows what to believe? But you get them in Tallahassee. Boston College has a new coach this year. You should be able to handle Boston College. And you have a a painful bye. You don't want to catch your byes September 7th. I can tell you that. Memphis, you should be able to handle. I don't know much about Cal. I mean, I think they went 3-9 last year, didn't they? In fact, let's see. What was their record? Can I just back up and look at their previous year's record? Yeah, what did they go last year? No, they went 6-7 actually. Okay. Oops. Who did they lose to? So they lost the most boring game ever played to Auburn. I remember that game. They got beat up by Washington, but Washington played more games last year than anyone else but one team. Okay, so their losses weren't embarrassing. I mean, they did something that Dion couldn't do and beat Stanford and hold on to a lead against Stanford. So that's something. Either way, you should be able to beat Cal. SMU, another team I don't know a lot about, but you should be able to beat SMU. It is in Dallas. Can you beat Clemson 2 years in a row? Now, again, we've talked about Clemson already. They're on a decline. They're not as talented as they have been in years past just because they don't take players out of the portal. But every team in the ACC has a team that just has their number, right? If you're a Georgia Tech fan, it's Virginia. Virginia always has your number. If you're Miami, it's North Carolina. If you're North Carolina, it's Georgia Tech. And if you're Florida State, it's Clemson. Clemson's just a team that other than beating them last year, when was the last time Florida State beat Clemson? I know it had been a minute. But that's another game you'll be favored in. Then you get your second bye. Oh, never mind about the first bye. Georgia Tech and Florida State get 3 byes because we play a week 0 game. I forgot about that. Duke, now look, I don't think Duke is going to be good this year, but I do like the hire of Manny Diaz for them. And I do think Manny Diaz is going to do good things at Duke, just not this year. You'll beat Duke. Miami, you should be able to beat. Everyone's going to beat North Carolina this year. So you know what? Florida State actually doesn't have the easiest schedule. So you got 1, 2, 3. You got 3 ranked teams. Notre Dame will be tough. This will be the defining moment of your season right here. Now, Notre Dame might not be as good as everyone thinks they're going to be. Who knows? But assuming they are a true top 5 team in the country, this will be the first big test. It's on the road. It's in Indiana. Well, I agree with I think Gavin Owens. I think you go 11-1. You make the ACC title game, and you lose to Notre Dame. That's a tough game to play. Coming off 2 tough ACC games. One on the road in Miami, you get one at home in Tallahassee against North Carolina. Then you go back on the road, play Notre Dame in Indiana. Now, I hope you do beat Notre Dame. Georgia Tech might upset FSU, but I don't know yet. I don't either. I mean, if I did, I would tell you. I don't think that we beat Florida State, and I'm not even trash talking. I'm just saying, as a Florida State fan, I would not overlook Georgia Tech, a team that doesn't have anything to lose and is looking to prove something going into Key's second year. Joe the Pilot says, FSU goes 9-3. So you're assuming they lose to Notre Dame, I guess Miami and Clemson. That could happen. I think Florida State makes it back to the ACC title. Just looking at this. Then the question is, what other team could make it? I have a feeling it's going to be a team that no one's really talking about. Let's look at Louisville's schedule. What does their schedule look like? They play Notre Dame as well. They play Miami. They play Clemson and Kentucky, who's not a bad SEC team. I don't think Louisville makes it back. We can go ahead and disregard Virginia, Boston College. Let's look at what Virginia Tech's schedule looks like, and even Pitt. Pitt's been down. They're not far removed from an ACC title. Cincy's a tough game for them, and that'll be a kind of a grudge match. Their old coaches at Cincinnati. West Virginia is not the easiest out. North Carolina, Cal. They have Clemson, Louisville. Okay, I'm gonna throw Pitt out. Where's Virginia Tech? Who plays Virginia Tech? Now, this is going to be an interesting game. Looking at Clemson's schedule, and I've already seen Georgia fans and Clemson fans pitching about the this is a noon kick. And look, this is what's going to happen as you build these two super conferences. There's only so many primetime games there's only so many primetime slots. I think the primetime slot for this one is what? Texas A&M and somebody? So we'll have to see. Georgia better not let Clemson get one over on them in Atlanta. You know what? Could NC State take the step up this year? We'll look at their schedule next. As a matter of fact, Clemson has a somewhat tough schedule. They open up with Georgia. App State's not a team you can overlook. Ask North Carolina and Michigan from like 15 years ago. NC State will be a tough game for them. I don't know what you're getting with Stanford. I do think they were 3-8 last year. Florida State, that's a tough game. Who knows what we're getting with Wake this year? Weren't they 4-8 last year? Virginia is probably going to fire their coach this year, unless they can get something together. Louisville will be a tough game. Virginia Tech will be a tough game. Who knows with Pitt? The Citadel, I don't even want to talk about, nor does any other Georgia Tech fan want to talk about the Citadel, and then South Carolina. I'll be honest with you, I don't think Clemson makes it on this schedule to the ACC title game either. Let's look at NC State. They open up with Jeff Collins' alma mater, Western Carolina. Georgia Tech goes 7-5 or 8-4 at best. That's right in line with what you'll hear from most reasonable Georgia Tech fans. Just looking at our schedule, I think I've already said, just kind of not putting a ton of thought into it, I'd probably have them going 6-6. The path to a bowl is going to be tough. They have a tough schedule. If they go 7-5, they're going to have to find like 4 upsets on that schedule probably, or 3 upsets on that schedule. 8-4. If Tech goes 8-4 on their schedule this year, it would never happen, but Brent Key should be in Coach of the Year contention. That would be extraordinarily impressive. Who are we looking at again? NC State. So they have Tennessee at home. That'll be an interesting game. The Duke's Mayo Classic. And they play a week 0 game as well. Interesting. Against Western Carolina. Then they got a Louisiana Tech non-con, Clemson. Whether they beat Clemson or not might determine whether they go to the ACC title or not. You should beat UNC again? Yeah, tell me something I don't know. The truth is we shouldn't. The truth is Clemson is more talent, or not Clemson, North Carolina is more talented than us. They've been more talented than us every time we've hung 40 or more points on them and beat them. We just have their number. And they've hired the worst coach in college football history in Jeff Collins because they don't know what they're doing. And Mac Brown is not far removed from a geriatric patient. So every time I do a show, my ex-wife tries and calls me. I don't know. I'm doing something right now. Let me see what she wants. I think she took the little one to Six Flags, which all of a sudden is terrifying because opening day of Six Flags, like gunshots were fired and there was like a whole mob mentality and gang activity. It was insane. I think if NC State can beat Clemson, look, they'll drop an ACC game on the schedule or so, but I think they got a good shot at making the ACC title game. That'd be an interesting matchup for FSU. Like they should beat Syracuse, they should beat Cal, Stanford, Duke, they should beat Tech. And, they've had North Carolina's number as late too. So that's what I'll go with to answer your question. FSU and NC State, which will be interesting because y'all were both in the Atlantic for so long. Now there's no longer divisions. So you have an opportunity to have an NC State, Florida State national title game. We go through the chat here. Virginia Tech has a shot. I agree. They don't. Do they play a conference game? I don't see anyone playing Virginia Tech. I know that we do. Let's look at their schedule. Vandy. It's a game they should win. Marshall's not the worst team in the world. You can't overlook Marshall. Old Dominion. Old Dominion beat them 2 years ago in Norfolk. Rutgers. So their first test will come against Miami. I would love for them to beat Miami and just go ahead and put an end to their ACC title dreams, right in the beginning of the season. Average Six Flags experience. I don't know about you guys, but whenever, I love riding roller coasters, but every time I ride a bunch of roller coasters and I lay in bed after that, I feel like I'm drunk and the whole room is spinning. I'm like, man, I don't drink. Why do I feel inebriated? Then they get Stanford in their first bye. Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Clemson. They get Clemson and Blacksburg. Let's look at what's their toughest road game. Probably Coral Gables, probably Miami, right? Because they get Clemson at home, Virginia at home. Yeah. Look, I think Virginia Tech is a much improved team. I just don't think – I'm not sleeping on Virginia Tech. I don't think they've improved enough, not to drop. I see them getting beat by Miami, Clemson, and then I have a feeling that they'll drop a game they probably shouldn't. They get beat by Boston College or Tech. Possibly even let Virginia sneak up on them. Virginia sneaks up on one team a year, usually North Carolina, which kind of pissed me off. Usually it's Georgia Tech that starts the implosion of North Carolina's season. They kind of took that away from us last year. How embarrassing if you're a North Carolina fan. You lose to Virginia, who's all but ready to fire their coach. And then you lose to Georgia Tech after you had lost to them the previous year when they had a third and fourth string quarterback. I see, I think Virginia Tech could go 8-4 or so. I don't think it's good enough to make an ACC title run. Fear the Spear, what's how? What do you mean how? Sorry, I'm not super keeping up with the chat, but did I say something you don't agree with? NC State fans excited they got the quarterback from Coastal Carolina, Noah Rogers, wide receiver from Ohio State, and filled in some pieces on the defense. Okay, I'm not super familiar with their program. So if they've, filled their roster. What happened with the quarterback last year? They had like a freshman quarterback or a redshirt sophomore or something, a young kid, and then he just kind of quit on them at the last few games of the season, right? Gavin says, I would love for Virginia Tech to beat the Candy Canes. What are they going to do this year if they end up going like 8-4 or something? Then what's the excuse going to be? Again, Miami's got to prove that they can put a complete season together. All right, let's look at Georgia Tech's schedule. Already talked about Florida State. I do think Georgia Tech's much improved. I still have questions on the defense, and it's not even as much who our starting 11 are going to be on defense. I think we have depth issues on defense that's not going to be solved this year. I just don't think we have enough to go to Ireland and beat Florida State. Georgia State, like I said, Florida State better not overlook Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech better not overlook Georgia State. They got a new coach in Dale McGee. They have gotten some players in the offseason. They've got something to prove. Now, this will be a home game for Georgia Tech, but it'll pretty much be a home game for Georgia State, too. I mean, these schools are separated by all of 3 or 4 miles, if that. I don't even think it's that much. If Georgia Tech struggles with Georgia State and or loses, I will be very concerned, especially if we're struggling because our defense is having trouble stopping Georgia State's offense. If that's the case, I will probably throw my hands up and be like, guys, we're in for a very rough ride this season. Joe says we're going 12-0. If we went 12-0, Coach Key would be Coach of the Year. That's for certain. Meck says 6-6. Georgia Tech Buzz is saying 8-4. If there was a time for us to beat Florida State this year, it would be week 1 in Ireland. It would be huge. It would be huge for a ton of reasons. That's going to be like the only game worth watching at that time. That would be huge for recruiting for Tech and a number of other things, even going into like donations, getting a ton of backing behind the program. At Syracuse, now this is a game I'll be at. I'm going to New York for this game. That's enough. I mean, there's no one on Georgia. Georgia Tech does not have the luxury of being able to overlook an opponent and just win on pure talent. That's not the position we're in. So you can't overlook anyone, including Syracuse. I know they got a ton in the portal. I know they got a new coach that's doing a lot of good things. I just don't think they've done enough to have it ready in their second game of the season. I think Tech wins that game. So I think we're 2-3 going into going into the VMI game. Obviously, I think we win against VMI. That gives us 3 wins. And you have absolutely got to be 3-4. Am I saying that right? You got to win those 3 games going into Louisville. If you have any hope of being successful this season. You don't have the luxury of dropping to Georgia State, Syracuse, or VMI with how this schedule gets moving forward. So you got to take care of business against the key debts here. Bring it on, Yellow Jackets. FSU fans have done fantastic on openers lately. Now, that is true. You did go to LSU last year and get a big win. Was that in Tallahassee or was that in Baton Rouge? I think it was in Baton Rouge, if I remember right. But I've been wrong about simpler things. Louisville, that's really a grudge match if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Georgia Tech was beating the brakes off of Louisville going into for a half last year. It was in Orlando. Oh, so it was a neutral site game. Okay. What would Jeff Collins' record be if he had this schedule? What would Jeff Collins' record be? Yeah, that's like you're playing golf. You're trying to get the lowest score. He'd definitely lose to Florida State. He'd probably lose. He loses probably 2 of these games. He might find a way to beat Georgia State, lose to Syracuse, squeak by against VMI. I mean, I guess you could just look at how many games would he win. I'd give him 1, 2, 3. I'd give him 2 or 3 wins on this schedule. And I say that because he never won more than 3 games anyways. And if he's never won more than 3 games at Tech, he certainly ain't doing it on this schedule. He could win 1 game on this schedule, possibly. It would be huge if Tech got a win in Louisville. That would really get things rolling. If you could go into your bye week 4-1, that would be massive. That would be huge. I do think Louisville takes a step back, though. I do think there's a possibility, more than a possibility, Tech goes up to Louisville and gets a win out of there. You know, and there's some questions on the other thing it hinges on is, like, can we cut the turnovers down on offense? If we can improve a good bit on defense and cut down the mistakes on offense, Tech could be a real sneaky team this year. If we could just hold teams to, on average, like under 25 points on defense, maybe even 28, and then our offense improves a little bit over last year, you might could start talking about 7-5, 8-4. I think we can get a win at Louisville, though. I think we beat Duke, especially coming off a bye. You know, they're in a complete rebuild now. Everything worth anything on their team was auctioned off to the highest bidder, which I told you guys would happen. I said after they beat Clemson, I said, I'm so happy for them now, but I'm heartbroken for the future because someone's going to hire their coach and every good player is going to leave in the portal. Every good coach they have is going to be taken. You know, Tech got their DC, Texas A&M got their head coach, and they're probably 2 years out from really recovering from that at a minimum. You think Louisville are winnable, True Seminole? I agree. I was dead wrong about Louisville last year. And kudos to them. Actually, a lot of really, really good fans were paying attention to the channel last year, commented, came on shows. And I'm happy for them. I think they take a step back this year. They got a tougher schedule. Now, this is the second road game I'll be at. I'll be at every home game, and I'll be at Syracuse, and I'll be in Chapel Hill. And I'm taking some of my friends with me. I'm going to start a thing. If you guys want to go up to the game with WreckTalk, we'll go up there. I'm going to look to see if Jeff Collins is on the field, where he stands. We'll buy an allotment of tickets right behind his fat head. And I'm going to sell T-shirts. We're going to be the high-level hecklers, and we are going to give him absolute hell. Again, I'm not even trolling. I legitimately think Georgia Tech beats North Carolina, along with several other people. This Jeff Collins experiment at North Carolina ain't going to work out. You look at the awful defenses they've had in previous years. Now, how would I know what an awful defense looks? I'm a Georgia Tech fan. So you can take it to the bank that WreckTalk knows bad defense when he sees one. And North Carolina's had it. If your answer to having historically bad defenses at North Carolina is Jeff Collins, you need to be checked into an institution somewhere. Matt Brown's retiring after this year. Tech ain't losing to North Carolina. Notre Dame, it's a neutral site game. I hate these neutral site games. I don't like playing at the Benz. I don't like playing home games outside of my home stadium. You have this cool thing going at Tech where you have the oldest on-campus stadium in the country, which walks you into some trolls. I get it. It feels like the oldest on-campus stadium at times, but it's a cool deal. You got the city skyline behind you. I don't like playing home games outside of Bobby Dodd. The one in Ireland counts as a home game, which puts you at a disadvantage on an already tough schedule. I don't see Tech beating Notre Dame though. But I do think between Georgia, let's just say this: Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida State. I could see Tech going 1-3 out of that. I do think Tech is going to sneak up on a good team. They about did it last year against Georgia. I mean, they gave Georgia everything they could have wanted. And I don't know if we have a single player that would start for Georgia. So things are definitely going in the right direction. And of course, Georgia fans are going to type, "Oh, you're claiming moral victory." That's complete nonsense. So I can't go into a game where I'm a huge underdog, where we play a good game, and I can say, "Well, I hate we lost, but I'm happy with how we played." You know, I don't know why that can't be understood. Virginia Tech's going to be a tough game. Now, I will say this: Georgia Tech's played pretty well in Blacksburg. If if I was smarter, I would go to Blacksburg instead of Syracuse, but I have a friend that lives in Syracuse. Now, like I said, that I think Tech can pull out one between Florida State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. They're going to lose one between, let's say, Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, and Georgia State. I don't think Georgia Tech's going to win every game that they quote unquote should win either. And I'm not even saying Virginia Tech's a should win game for Tech, but almost every team in the country, 99% of them drop a game they shouldn't, and that's not going to be any different for Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech are both pretty evenly matched, yes. And that tells you how brutal the schedule is, that Virginia Tech is one of your easiest conference games. I guess the easiest conference game would be either Duke or Syracuse. And then the next one's probably Virginia Tech. It's a tough schedule. So let's see. I said I think we can beat Georgia, Georgia State, Syracuse, VMI. There's 3 wins. Let's just go with the games I think we should win. Duke would be 4. So that's 4 games I think we should win. I'm not taking them to the bank. Those are 4 games you should win. And this just tells you how difficult it's going to be to get to 7 or 8 wins. I think we beat North Carolina. That's 5. I think we will be a slight underdog in that game, depending just because of their schedule, how it stacks up. There's 5 wins. Then you'd have to beat Virginia Tech. That's 6. I just see 6-6 on this schedule looking at it initially. So you could do that. That would mean you lose to Miami, NC State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida State, and Louisville. Now, obviously, you could trade maybe we beat Louisville and drop to Virginia Tech, or maybe by some miracle North Carolina beats you and you win against Miami. I see 6-6 here. And that's, again, I have no idea what the defense is going to look like. None. 0. The defense is not that much better than last year. I could see 5 wins on this schedule. We won't lose to Duke. We can't afford to lose to Duke. No, we can't. You can't afford to lose to Duke or VMI, Georgia State. Like, if you drop any of those games, you're in a bad way. Last time Virginia Tech beat Georgia Tech in Blacksburg was 2012. I figured that was the case. I didn't know the stat. I just don't remember the last time we lost in Blacksburg. I guess it was 2012. I was a young man then. Joe the Pilot says, I have a feeling Collins is only preparing to beat Georgia Tech. Yeah, and that's a loser's mentality. Like, if you're just preparing to beat one team, which is definitely something he would do, we got beaten Blacksburg in 2016. Give me a second. I got to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. All right. We've had our pee break intermission. Collins can't prepare to beat anyone. What's he going to do? Beat us to death with pool noodles? Guy's a joke. He is a joke, and North Carolina fans just haven't figured that out yet. That's just facts. So yeah, I could see NC State, Florida State in the ACC title. I see Tech going 6-6. I talked about it a little bit, but they have Haynes King as the 6th best quarterback in the conference, and take a little offense to that. Now I'm happy. Tech tends to do best when no one thinks much about us. When Jeff Collins isn't coaching us. FSU beat Virginia Tech. Okay. Wonder if he brought expression boards to UNC. He definitely brought money down to UNC and then acted like, oh man, I just don't know how this is following me around. It's like, well, you instill it everywhere. That's why you make a big deal about it wherever you go and you think they just randomly make money down signs wherever you go without you making them produce them? Come on, man. What are you doing? In fact, that's what I should do. I'll probably do a video predicting every ACC team's schedule. What does Notre Dame's schedule look like? Okay, so it's Notre Dame, Texas A&M that has the primetime spot over Georgia and Clemson on August 31st. So that'll be an interesting game. I do think, Notre Dame will be favored by a good bit, but look, I've been on the Mike Elko train for a while. Dude knows what he's doing. Dude has something to prove this year. Would not surprise me if Texas A&M gives Notre Dame everything they want in game 1. Now, if I didn't want to talk about the Citadel, damn good and well I don't want to talk about NIU. They should beat NIU, Purdue, Miami of Ohio. Louisville, they should beat Louisville. They get a bye. Stanford. Their schedule stacks up really nicely this year. In fact, Georgia Tech has a tougher schedule than Notre Dame does. They play Navy, Georgia Tech, Stanford. Florida State is really their toughest game. What's their toughest road game? USC? USC or Texas A&M? They don't have a tough road game. Notre Dame should be looking to make a playoff run this year. Saying Mike Elko is a boss, but I am rooting for Notre Dame I will never root for Notre Dame. Ever. I hate Notre Dame. 1 foot in, and they're fence riders. And I get it. They are the biggest, if you just look at TV revenue generating team in the country. I think it's like, as far as teams that generate the most TV revenue, it's Notre Dame, Texas, and then I think Ohio State. Then I think you get like Alabama, Georgia, teams like that. But still, I hate that the ACC gave them a lifeline during the pandemic. ACC absolutely messed up by not forcing Notre Dame to join back in 2020. I agree. I absolutely agree. And I talked about it on yesterday's show. Because I think a lot of Florida State fans look at me like I've turned heel against them. And that's not the case at all. It's just that I think the ACC is totally inept and have done silly things. And I think that Florida State is saying silly things, namely with acting like they're insolvent. I don't disagree with how they feel. I do think it's silly how they've acted at points. But some people don't want to hear that. They want an echo chamber. They want college football addiction. They want locked on Big 12. I almost feel like you should get a community strike on YouTube if just everything you do is clickbait. Like if every video title doesn't have anything to do with the actual content of your video, You guys tell me what you think. I almost feel like you should get a community strike for that. And if you don't know how YouTube works, if you get 3 of those, your channel is permanently banned. Seminole says college football addiction, excuse me, is a joke. Guy's just farming for clicks. He is. He is. And once the dust settles with realignment, whenever that is, then what's he going to have? Those videos do the best. They do. If you guys don't know, clickbait works. Just look at Boogie, 90218 or whatever, 912, whatever his name is. Look at college football addiction, and his videos get really good views for the subscriber account he has. And that's the unfortunate thing. Like, I think that the video, I'm going to start sounding like Carolina Jackpot in a second. And I love Carolina Jackpot. I feel like my assessment on like them saying, like recognizing that the NCAA 25 trailer said game engine footage instead of captured on PS5 or Xbox was really good. And I wish that video would have done better. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't really bother me whether a video does well or not. I just thought it was a good take. And if I would have titled it like, I don't know, EA Sports is doing things that are going to bankrupt the company, then I'm sure it would have gotten a lot more views. It's just not, I'm just not interested in that. T. Brent says, I could have gone my whole life never thinking about Boogie again. Boogie's kind of my hero. I'll be honest with you. The man was in a position to never work again a day in his life and blew all of his money on hookers. And cryptocurrency. Now, anyone who's dumb enough to trust an unregulated financial market where someone can just rug pull a coin and walk away with 20, 30 million without any repercussions, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. In fact, I've had people in my personal life, like someone's like, oh man, and this was back in the day, like I'm really thinking about getting into this crypto stuff. I'm like, well, you do better to just gamble at the casino. At least there's some regulations around that if you get screwed. And you know what the odds are. Like, you know what your odds are when you go play roulette. It is what it is. You know what, in fact, if you're playing poker, you can memorize what the odds are. You know, in other words, you know what you're getting. You not so much. I mean, even Tether, which is how you get your money back out, as far as I can tell, used to be backed 1 by 1 or 1 to 1 to the dollar. Come out that it isn't. So, anyways, what were we even talking about? Oh, Boogie. They did a documentary about Boogie, and they they interviewed one of the women of the night that he procured services from. And she said, yeah, after that night with Boogie, I retired from the sex work industry. He made her insta retire from being a prostitute. And I respect that. I respect that. So yeah, now he goes on LolCow, the LolCow YouTube channel, and basically begs for donations from his subscribers. By the way, Super Chat's always appreciated. The channel. There's nothing I won't do for money on YouTube. I was going to play some NCAA tonight, but it's kind of getting late and I got to work early in the morning. What else do we need to talk about, family? What else is on your mind? Let me go back up to the chat, see what you guys were saying. And I'll be like, I'm over the conference realignment stuff. I do have a video I've been researching for a while about TV markets and just how sustainable things are. So that'll be coming out soon. I've actually recorded a lot of things. I I haven't had the time to put out yet. I recorded, because Sea Dog has been telling me we need to do this for a while. Because I talk to Sea Dog all the time. And usually the end of the conversation, he says, man, we should record these. Now, I have the ability to do that now. And so our last conversation, I did record, but I didn't tell him about it. And it was pretty good. So I have to edit out some things from that and bleep. I don't necessarily have the cleanest language when I talk to Sea Dog, so I got to edit it up a little bit. True Seminole says, you said you had your sights on 2026 recruiting. I said 2025 for Georgia Tech. How high do you think the class can get if Georgia Tech continues on this trajectory? So I said 2025, which is this year's recruiting cycle, I thought is where you start paying dividends, or you start seeing Key pay dividends on the hires he's made, the type of culture he's instilled, the backing he's gotten from the program. The Ed Center is coming down. We're putting the Fanning thing up. I think anything this year that is worse ranked than 25 is a failure for Brent Key. This year, you've given the proof of concept. So in your interim year, you stopped the bleeding. You got some quality wins that you had no business getting, namely being like North Carolina, even Duke that year, Pitt. No one thought. We were 3 touchdown underdogs in 2 of those games. When Key was an interim. So the guy knows what he's doing. And then you make a bowl for the first time last year. Now it was a bumpy road. You lose to Bowling Green, you fire 2 DCs, but now you've gotten all of the stink of Jeff Collins out of your program if you're Georgia Tech and Brent Key. Other than Chris Winkie, you guys tell me in the chat, is there a single coach that coached under Collins, other than Winkie and Key? Is there a single coach that coached under Jeff Collins that's still there? I don't think so. I know not on defense. You got a lot of people with deep-rooted recruiting ties in the state of Georgia that were hired solely for that purpose that aren't even on the field coaches. So anything worse than the 25 ranked recruiting class this year is a failure, in my opinion. How high can it be? Now, here's the interesting thing. If you do that, you're going to have a historic recruiting class at Georgia Tech, because it's no secret Georgia Tech has just never beaten the world of college football down with their recruiting classes. Never happened. Even like George O'Leary, I'm thinking back to great coaches in the past, like they didn't have eye-popping recruiting classes. In fact, what's the highest class we've ever had? Like 10th? Something like that. 10th or 12th. Best thing Collins ever did was hire Key. Yeah, and the interesting thing is now he hates him. I'm going to agree with Joe the Pilot. I think you could get a top 15 class, but it's going to require some things. One thing it's going to require probably, I'm not saying you have to beat. What? What are you doing? Come here. One thing it's going to require is, I'm not saying you have to beat Florida State, but stop. Do you want to say something? Teddy Pup doesn't have time for my show. You're going to have a good showing against Florida State. You're going to have to have a really good showing against Florida State, and you're probably going to need to at least go 7-5 this year. I think if you do that, and it's going to require you to get a win against Florida State, Notre Dame, or Georgia. If you can do that, 7-5 with a marquee win like that, and landing a big recruit early, because nowadays, you want this towel? Here. Take it. Some of your biggest advocates for recruiting are currently signed recruits. If you can put some of those things together, I think you could have a top 15 class, which would be one of the best classes you've ever signed. And then that gets you set up for next year. Now you've got the positive feedback loop going. By the way, we play Colorado next year, and I just pray Deion's still there. It's going to be hilarious. I've talked so much trash to the Deion Sanders fans. But I'd be elated. You couldn't tell me anything if we did that. Yeah, Teddy Pup sighting. He's something else. I don't know. I love Teddy Pup. So does my daughter. So, yeah. I think we could do some good things in recruiting this year. In fact, I'd have to look at Georgia Tech 2025 recruiting. Deion will be gone after this season. I'm not sure. All right, so we do have. Wait a second. Yeah, Justin Hustle Hoddle. We've got the N at Rabin Gap. So that's a big offensive line recruit. And look, this is the great thing with Key in Georgia Tech right now. If there's one position group that you just have a lock on in development and recruiting, I choose offensive line. And Key's got something special going with offensive line at Georgia Tech. We had a true freshman. We had 2 true freshmen All-Americans last year. One of them was Ethan McKinney. Wasn't even supposed to play. Injuries dictated that he played and became a freshman All-American. Georgia Tech's going to have one of the best offensive lines in the ACC this year. I couldn't be happier. They land a 4-star early in the cycle. Killing me, buddy. Andre Fuller, edge rusher. Now, this is the other thing with this recruiting class. You have got to land some quality defensive linemen in this class. You've got to start building the depth in your front 7 on defense. Seminole says, True Seminole says y'all play Alabama next year to open. You know, what is the post-Nick Saban era going to look like at Alabama? I don't know. I think they hired a good coach. Look, when you take Washington, would you chill, dude? Would you chill? It's just it's tough shoes to fill. I mean, who can really fill Nick Saban's shoes? Anything shy of competing, being in national title contention every year or playoff contention is not going to be acceptable at Alabama. I hope they got the best though. Seminole says it's amazing. It's amazing despite how much of a clown Deion Sanders is. How good that Deion hire was. A good one, not for wins, but for revenue. Okay, so you're saying as horrible as a coach as he is, financially it made sense. The thing is, will it make financial sense in the long run? Because look, as a college football fan, all I care about is winning. I don't care about how much money my school has in the bank. First of all, most athletic departments run at a deficit. Like, athletic departments don't run like a normal business. So if I'm a Colorado fan and it's like, oh man, financially you're killing it, but you're going 4-8 every year, like, I'm not going to be happy with that. Ain't no way I'm going to be happy with that. Neither should anyone else. Stan Garner says, I only regret that we won't be able to beat God's gift to football Shadur next year. Yeah, and I don't even really, look, Shadur acts like a turd a lot of the time with his, Rolex or whatever he shows. But I don't think his dad does him any favors. Like, you look at the Manning, like Archie Manning. Archie Manning would literally, wear disguises to not be recognized. And evidently they asked him when Peyton was at Tennessee, hey, would you come into some of our offensive meetings? We just want to kind of pick your brain. You know what Arch Manning did in that meeting? He fell asleep. In other words, Arch Manning made the focus his son and not him. Now, it's apples and oranges because for some stupid reason, Deion Sanders is a coach at Colorado. But Deion is first and foremost about Deion and people with the last name Sanders. That's what he's about first and foremost. Does that sound like an equation for success for a college football coach? No. And that doesn't set up Shadur for success, I don't think. In that call I recorded, and I'll release for members, I'll release like the full call for members on the channel, and I'll cut it up, and I'll probably play it for like pre-shows. But C-Dog brought it up. He said, I lost all respect for Deion when he fired his OC, who was the only coach that had a damn clue what he was doing. What are you doing? He's behind my green screen. And then they passed way more after they fired the DC. In other words, he's just trying to pad Shadura's stats. He ain't concerned about winning football games. And once you have a coach that's not first and foremost about winning, you got a problem, and you got a bad one. He made moves last year not to win, but to pad Shadur's stats. That's inarguable. That's not even disputed. There's no argument you can make that makes any sense to bat that down. I don't think that does his son any favors. I don't. Most likely, once Shadur gets drafted next year, for the first time in his college football career, he's going to be on a team that is not coached by Deion Sanders. I don't think an NFL team is going to hire Deion Sanders as a coach. I just don't. So then he's going to have to prove that he can exist in a world without his dad, which isn't his fault. His dad set it up that way. His dad put him in that position. What is Deion Sanders and all of his idiot fans going to do when it doesn't work this year? And it's not. It's not. We'll look through Colorado's schedule again. Because it's a lot tougher than I thought it was. North Dakota State, and I've had people comment, that's another game Deion cannot overlook. North Dakota State is one of the best teams in their division. What would happen if they lost to North Dakota State? It would be hilarious. Christmas will come early if North Dakota State gets one over on Deion. At Nebraska, they got Dylan Raiola. He hasn't played a down of football. He was the number one quarterback recruit in the country. Matt Rule knows what he's doing at Nebraska. I think he loses to Nebraska. He almost lost to Colorado State. They are coming to Atlanta in 25. They are. I don't know if they're coming. I know we play them. I don't know if it's in Atlanta. Okay, it's in Boulder. Colorado State's a game he almost lost last year. I don't know much about Baylor. That's not a foregone win. He loses to Central Florida. I bet you he loses to Central Florida, especially in Orlando. So let's say by the time of his first bye week, he's got 2 losses. So that would give him what? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What am I saying he's going to win? Give him that win. 1, 2. Let's just say he has 2 wins. Then what? The schedule don't get any easier. He gets a ranked team at home in Kansas State. He gets a top 15 team on the road in Arizona. He's got Cincinnati, who's in the Big 12 now. They're not a group of 5 team anymore. They're a good team. Plays Texas Tech. He's got to play Utah, a top 10 team. He closes the season. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of his last 7 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he plays 5 preseason ranked teams. He's not going bowling this year either. He's not. And every year that it doesn't work out, he's got to scramble around and try and make moves in the portal because he's told you he could give less than a crap about recruiting. Oh, you can't, but you can't apply conventional wisdom to Deion Sanders. That's like being a car manufacturer and saying, yeah, we're just, we just don't care about wheels or tires. Like there are some things that are self-evidently pivotal to the success of whatever you're doing. And in college football, recruiting is one of them. Damn him for making me say anything good about Kirby. But whenever they look at making a change at Georgia, the first thing he asks is, how does it affect recruiting? And that's a guy that's been at the top of college football. Nick Saban, best recruiter in college football history. Maybe Kirby can overtake him, but over the stretch he was at Alabama, he was the best recruiter. He had multiple, like back-to-back-to-back number one overall classes. And is it any coincidence they had the most historic run in college football history under him? No. Some of that was in the portal era. So to this delusion, and it is a delusion, that you can ignore recruiting and have sustained success is insane. In fact, I don't even think Deion believes it. I think Deion believes if he can just have one, magical portal class, he can have a decent season and then he can get out of Boulder and claim victory. That makes the most sense to me. If you don't care about recruiting, you're not concerned with the long-term success of your program. So he's telling you he's not in there for the long haul at Colorado. Will the new college football game have Twitter beefs? I know that coaches aren't in it, but it would be great if they're. In fact, in one of the older Maddens, it might have been like Madden 13 or something. I remember like you would navigate on your cell phone and you would talk to your agent. So we already have the proof of concept for that. If someone hits the portal, you can go tweet about them. Oh, me. Yeah, when do we play them the year after? It probably hasn't even been released yet. No, it's the first game of the season. They open up with us next year. Excellent. That way he can start off 0-1 if he's still there in 2025. Love it. Well, anyways, guys, it's getting late. We're past 9 o'clock. I appreciate you all tuning in. Thought we had some good conversation talking about the ACC, talking about Deion, talked a little conference realignment, and Boogie. We really hit the gambit here. Y'all have a great night. I will talk to you again next time. Y'all have a good one.